I heard a great proverb the other day that was, all mushrooms are edible, but some are only edible once.
Never forget that you have the tools to build a life on your own terms. Forget the haters. This is FounderQuest.
And I've got to tell you guys, like, this was just, I don't know, this kind of makes up for the rest of 2020 for me personally. But when I took all this equipment that I had bought for the fiber optic link between my house and the new office, and I hooked it up to the cable that had been like buried by electricians who didn't really know what they were doing regarding, fiber. And I hooked everything up. It just all worked the first time.
Wow.
Like this is the most amazing thing. Like that's what I need to get me through the rest of this year.
For real.
I'm just going to think back to that golden moment.
Yeah. I still can't get anything but Comcast here. And on top of that, we can barely breathe now because of the smoke levels outside.
I see the window behind you. It looks kind of apocalyptic.
Can you see that?
I can see it. Yeah.
It is daytime right now.
Like, I know.
It is so dark.
Oh my gosh.
I read that yesterday. It was so bad in San Francisco that the birds didn't even realize it was daytime.
Really?
Yeah.
All the poor birds.
Yeah, none of the roosters are crowing either.
Yeah. I've just got to say that like Coit Tower in San Francisco is made for these like apocalyptic like red sky pictures. Is that really like pointy tower?
Yeah. Did you see the drone footage that someone
yeah, that was awesome.
did with what was it, Blade Runner, or what was the soundtrack?
Yep.
Oh, I need to find that.
The air quality, it's been frustrating for me this week because, I got my new kayak and I was on vacation. I was like, yes, I'm going to paddle like every day, all day long. And no, I did not paddle every day, all day long.
Oh, that's frustrating.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about you this week. Well, how is it up there anyway? Because I was like, if like you all are dealing with any of the stuff that we have down here, like I wouldn't want to be out on a river now.
Well, earlier in the week, we were getting easterly winds. So we were getting smoke from the fires in eastern Washington. And so our air quality index was hovering in the low 100s. So 100 to 120-ish in my neck of the woods. And then as of last night, now we're getting southerly winds. So now we're getting the California and Oregon smoke. So now it's gone up. I think we're around the 200-ish neighborhood. So yeah, like every day I was hoping the next day would be a little bit better, and every day it wasn't. So finally on Thursday, I'm like, I'm just going. So I just went and, luckily didn't get overwhelmed by all the smoke. I was able to successfully complete the maiden voyage of the kayak. So.
Did you enjoy? Was it a good? Yeah. Was it a good paddle?
It was nice. That's great. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, it's like it's hazy here and sort of unpleasant to breathe the air, but it's not. It doesn't have like the same like world is ending vibes that are in Oregon and like San Francisco.
Yeah, apparently. Mike Parham, he was telling me that the air quality index inside his house is over 300.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they are,
how is he?
They are headed north. He's got like a little, I don't know. It's like a little meter. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. I want one now.
You can, I found that you can buy them from Purple Air.
Oh, really?
Really?
PurpleAir.com. Yes. They have both internal and external monitors, and they have a crowdsourced map of your local neighborhood air quality, assuming that someone in your neighborhood has one of their devices.
Okay. Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I didn't really know anything about air quality, like measuring air quality before. Like we've never really, our air has always been pristine. So.
Yeah, when you live in Washington State, it's like, air's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it just sort of comes in from the ocean and it's always fresh. But apparently, like if the air over the ocean is full of smoke, then you're just out of luck. Yeah.
You know, the worst part about all this is that like it could not stop raining this spring, like when we were all, you know, like stuck quarantined inside. It just would not stop raining. And now we're stuck inside due to the smoke, and we just wish it would rain because, you know, it would dampen everything, and it just won't rain. It's really doing the opposite.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, I bought a bunch of respirator type masks, not the cloth masks, and they actually, like, if you wear one of those, you can't actually smell smoke in the air outside. So, yeah. So we just ordered 100 more of those just to have stockpile. Yeah. So
and you look like really cool when you go for your daily walks.
Yes. And, you know, so I wear I use the respirator type mask, like they're not N95, they're KN95 by, I guess, a reputable company that's been like approved for use by the FDA for medical stuff or something. And so they're like legit good masks. And I tend to wear them like whenever I go into enclosed spaces.
Yeah.
You know? Or anywhere outside now. I guess everywhere now. But I always wonder, is like, do people think that like I'm too bougie because of my masks that I special ordered? Like, do they think I'm like putting on airs?
Well,
because
I mean, maybe if you lived outside of Seattle, I don't know. There's got to be other. You got to have some fellow like mask, like bougie mask wearers that you meet on the street and kind of just like, you know, quietly nod to.
Oh, totally.
All you got to do is like get some big baggy pants, some big old boots, strap a keyboard across your back, and then you can be all like, yeah, I'm like, you know, Blade Runner, like cyberpunk
2020 nomad.
Yeah, so I've read a lot of cyberpunk literature, and I don't really want to live in any of those worlds. So no, thank you.
Yeah.
But one thing I do like about these masks, and I'm putting the link to put in the show notes in case anybody wants them, because like it's kind of hard to find a decent like place that's selling masks for not $1 million, even though it's not really on topic for the podcast. But one thing I like about these is like the American masks, like the N95 ones, tend to be kind of like shaped like a clamshell, right? They sort of like are this little round, like it's like wearing a bowl on your face. But these KN95 masks are much more pointy in the front, and it almost gives off kind of like a plague doctor vibe.
Yeah.
I like a sort of miniature version of that.
You see, my problem with the normal N95 masks is that my face is already shaped like a bowl. And so it just does, they don't really fit very well.
I mean, bowls stack.
Right. Yeah. They just need to be like the proper relative size. And I'm just, it's all off. I got a big head.
Well, so what do y'all want to like talk about?
I don't know. I was interested to see how Ben's vacation was going.
Vacation's been
sounds
awesome.
like it's going good.
Aside from, you know, being locked indoors because of the smoke, it's been great. I think I need to take another week though, because do-over kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, when the air gets better, you should definitely do that.
I mean, seriously, like
I've actually managed to not do any work aside from one hour thing where I was just kind of doing some research on something that was just kind of strange.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's been amazing.
Awesome.
Have we just had not a ton of tickets? Because I've been like checking the tickets diligently, and there's really haven't been many when I've logged in, or maybe Josh has been taking care of them all. I don't know.
I've been knocking them out in the mornings, but it hasn't been too bad. I don't know. The ones that have come in, it seems like it's been kind of a slow week. I mean, I've done a number of tickets, but it hasn't been like, I don't know. I think I've probably done like, 6 to 10, something like that.
Thank you for managing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of reading, a lot of sci-fi. So read iRobot and got started on Foundation.
Awesome.
Oh, how are you liking those?
Yeah, I'm loving them. That's great stuff. I read the fourth book of the Murderbot series, which is fantastic. You should definitely check that out. The first 3 are novellas, and the fourth is an actual novel. So they're quick reads and they're fun. Basically, if you're not familiar with Murderbot, it's set in a future where there is sentient AI, and Murderbot is what's called a sec unit security unit. So basically, Murderbot is a hybrid robot human with some human organs and such. And basically, the job of the sec unit is to guard colonists as they go and colonize planets. So this, I don't want to give a lot of the story away, but this sec unit has adventures, and you get to follow along, and it's a lot of fun. So you should definitely check it out.
I was going to ask like how they get past the first law of robotics.
Yes.
Because bots aren't supposed to murder people, but I guess by making like a bot human hybrid, like it's a human parts that do the murder.
Yeah. Well, their job is to defend other humans. So if they have to kill a human to defend a human, well, then it's okay, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's a slippery slope.
This is where the ethics really come in.
That's a pretty slippery slope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got a trolley, and
and that's the iRobot. If you haven't read that, that's we toss around these first laws, these laws of robotics and stuff, and that's where they were created, right? And the book does a great job of dealing with some of those interesting dilemmas that can come from these laws that they have to abide by and interacting with them. And it's not a long read, so if you haven't read it, it's a classic, and you should definitely check it out.
iRobot, you mean?
Yeah.
I haven't read that one. I'll have to do that. I finished the first book of The Expanse though, and that was fun.
Yeah, those are fun.
Yeah, I do wish I had read the book before watching the series, even though like the book was really like it had a lot more detail, so it was still a fun read. But I hate having the picture, like picturing the characters in my head when you already know them. It's hard to get that image out.
Oh yeah, that's why I still haven't watched the Magician series, because I really like the Magicians like book series, and I saw the preview on Netflix. And I'm just like, no, that's not who those people are. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about like even the Lord of the Rings, like as much as I like those, as much as like they were really well done, like I still wonder sometimes if I wish that they had never been made, just because I love the book so much as a kid.
Yeah.
And like I love the movies, like they're awesome, but yeah, you feel like you lose a little bit of something, like you lose something when someone else interprets it for you.
I've got to ask y'all, do you all ever, when you're reading a book, do you ever, like in your mind's eye, sort of like cast different people from like different parts of your life, like as a character in a book?
No.
And no?
No, you do this? That's kind of like, I kind of want to now.
Yeah, I mean, it's unconscious, but
yeah.
I was just thinking about because of the Magicians, there's this one character, Alice. And I realized as I was reading The Magicians, it's like, oh, like Alice is this person I knew in high school. And it's like, it's not the same person, but in terms of like, like what she looks like, what her mannerisms are, her general like vibe and background.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. I don't know. Like I have trouble. Like, I don't know. Like the way I visualize, it's like, it's not like, I have trouble visualizing things like extremely clearly. So I don't know if I'd like relate it to someone specific, like an image or something.
I learned recently that that some people do not have an internal monologue, which is kind of cool. Like it's like you assume. I'm assuming you'll have internal monologues, but if you don't, like, no judgment. I'm just. I don't know. You just assume that everybody works like you, and then it doesn't happen that way.
I'm glad you said that, Star, because before that, my internal monologue was judging you, and but you're good now.
Oh, thank you.
I'm reading like 5 history books right now for some reason, and it's getting.
I believe that reason is because you're taking a history course.
Well, that's a big part of it. But I was also reading like history books for fun before that, and those are still ongoing. So now I have like my, I don't know if you have like, if you ever like differentiate between like week and weekend reading, like I'll have my, like not necessarily workbooks, but books that are more for like, just like development of knowledge or things that I want to have read that I'm kind of like making myself read, and then books that I'm like really excited about. And sometimes I'll save those, I'll read those. So I'll switch my books on the weekend and read the, you know, whatever the fun books are. Well, they've converged, so they're all the same at this point.
It's good when you can enjoy your work.
Yeah, but I am really enjoying the history class still, and it's been a lot of fun, and it's also nice being self-paced because, like in a normal class, like college class, I don't know. I was always like intimidated by the pressure of like having to get the work done by, you know, you have to get it done by the deadline and then move on, and there's no room. Like for instance, if you actually got interested in a topic and wanted to go like down a rabbit hole for a little while, like you don't have the time. But in a self-paced online course, you can kind of like, if something really strikes you, you can go you can pause for a week and go read another, you know, some other book on it or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I highly recommend it if you ever feel like taking a course, but not actually taking a course.
Yeah. Maybe that's how I can get my law degree. I'll do it all online.
Oh, there you go.
I've been I don't know, for some reason, like earlier this year, I really started thinking about going back or finishing my degree, because I have like a half completed computer science degree. And I decided I wouldn't go back for computer science because for some reason I'm just like, I'm already doing well enough without a computer science degree. So there's other things I'm more interested in. And this would be purely for, I guess, just for selfish fun reasons. There's a lot of options online, especially like this year, things are shifting. It seems to where I think we're going to have a lot more options in the future. So maybe you will get your law degree. I did learn that history majors are common for law, like pre-law though, Ben. So if I did get a history degree, then we could both be lawyers someday. We could start a honey badger law practice.
Well, you know, when we start our honey badger commune, we're going to have politicians, right? So
wait, what? What don't we send all of them to the guillotine? Like what?
Yeah.
I thought we're getting away from them. That's why I did the commune.
So that actually reminds me of another book, The Dispossessed. So The Dispossessed is a novel about a group of people that they're humans that are on a planet orbiting Tau Ceti, and they basically, like, historical to this character, like 170 years back or something, the splinter group left the main population and moved to the moon, basically this planet's moon, and started like this communal living experiment where basically they're all anarchists. And I really enjoyed the book's description of their society. Ursula K. Le Guin, I'm not sure how you pronounce the name, but she goes to, I think, great lengths to describe, like, it's a utopia, but it's not perfect. So it's like, it's not really utopia, right? But the idea is like, oh, this is a utopian novel, but it shows some of the downsides of what you might find in any society, right? And so I liked, because, you know, I think some of the utopian novels get a little tired after a while. It's like, oh yeah, everything's wonderful and blah, blah, blah. But this one is, I like the trying to bring some realism to the idea of, okay, well, what if we had this ideal community? What would it look like? Okay, and then now what might be some of the problems? And in this case, some of the problems are like and this, my comment about needing a politician for a commune comes from this, because one of the problems that arises in this community, even though they're anarchists and they're basically all looking out for just the welfare of the community, still that generates over time, that generates some habits, some bureaucracies even. And the main character is basically, the story is rebelling against this, what has come to be a government, even though they don't believe in government. So
yeah,
that
sounds plausible.
Yeah, it's a fun read. So yeah,
that makes sense. It's interesting to think about this stuff for when our grandchildren are running Honey Badger. You know, when they look up at those bronze statues of the three of us. and think, God, what would they do? You know, they were so wise.
Or maybe as they're rising up from the ashes of the society that fell apart in 2020 due to climate change and COVID.
Yeah.
Oh, none of that stuff's real. So
denied.
Well, let's see. I'll jump in with my books. I recently finished the Neapolitan Quartet of Novels by Elena Ferrante. And these came out, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, and were super, you know, everybody gushed over them, you know, rightfully because they're super good. But yeah, the novels basically like trace the sort of traces friendship of these two, you know, girls who grow up to be women, and they're in Italy, and it sort of traces their friendship throughout their lives. And it's really interesting. It's sort of like, as a side thing, it's not really like a main, it's not really something that gets really discussed in a lot of detail, but one of the women is basically sort of like an early programmer of, you know, IBM mainframes, and sort of starts a startup. And I didn't even know this going into it, but that was kind of interesting to see.
So it's a startup book. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, totally startup book. So,
Okay.
Yeah, the first one's called My Brilliant Friend. And yeah, the first 2 books in the series are like great. The third book, I was like, I've got to read this, but I really am hating everything the characters are doing. And then the 4th book, it was like, so, you know, I don't know. Maybe the first 2 books I would recommend, and then just dip your toe in the third and see if you like it.
That's cool.
Well, speaking of startup books, so I also read recently The Unicorn Project.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, the sequel to the Phoenix Project.
Yeah.
So I couldn't relate to it a whole lot because, like the Phoenix Project, it's all about big business and you know, and how IT and ops and stuff work inside very large organizations, which we are not. But it was a fun story anyway, just like the Phoenix Project was. I really like how that particular author structures the lessons learned around a narrative. And, you know, I don't typically want that in my business books. Usually I want something that's a little drier and just to the point, like the Tiny MBA that we talked about last week. But in this case, I think it works because the story is good enough.
Yeah. And the story helps. I like how it helps kind of put you, because like you said, it's not like relatable to us like from experience. So it kind of gives you that experience of living through what it's like to work in a large enterprise like that. Because I guess never say never, but I don't expect to ever have that experience specifically. But it's important to understand, especially, you know, for our business, obviously, you want to know, it puts us inside of our potential customers too. So any kind of like book that can like put you in someone else's shoes in like business or industry, I like those kind of books.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should make one like that is relatable to our size of business, and we could like call it the Jabberwocky Project.
I like it. Or the Lemur Project, because everybody loves lemurs, right?
You should totally write that book, Star. I would read it.
I didn't know lemurs were mythical.
The Lemur Project.
Oh, right. These are mythical creatures. I forgot about that. I kind of thought phoenixes and unicorns were real.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
My worldview is crushed.
Well, Phoenix, Arizona is real. So.
True. I've been there. Yeah, I think the next business book I read will be, I haven't gone through Tiny MBA yet, so I'll still got that on my desk. I'll be getting to that at some point. I think like five to six books is definitely like normal. Like I used to be like one book, like, you know, like single threaded reader, just because I used to like, well, before that, I'd just, you know, have a bunch of books and not read none of them. So I decided like, if I'm going to get through books, I have to just focus on one, get it done, and then not let myself start another one. And then I got really good at that. So then I went back to the old approach where I could have like a couple different threads going, but I'm reaching the limit now. So yeah. Do you want to hear some history books that I'm reading in case?
Of course. Yeah.
Cause I don't think I haven't actually like named any of them. I've been reading the Federalist Papers for like way too long. Like I've been trying to read that book my entire adult life. Okay. like for a long time, like I just wasn't, I don't know, I wasn't like at the level of reader to like have the patience to get through it, I think. But I'm on, this morning I finished Federalist 76 of 85. And so I'm almost done. That one in particular, since it's like kind of a primary source, you know, like if you don't know what they are, they're papers written by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay in 1788 in favor of like ratifying the Constitution of the United States. And so it's kind of like each one, there's 85 of them, and each one is kind of like a paper. It was like a newspaper article, but they were published at the time kind of as like a, and I didn't actually know this until recently, but it was really like kind of like a pitch or an advertisement. So there's a little bit of like, you can't like necessarily read them completely at face value. Like there's a little bit of like propaganda going on in there too.
They were hyping it up.
They were hyping the Constitution basically. But it's really interesting because it goes through like point by point, like arguing like the specific details of like every little decision that went into the document. But it's a really good like slow read. Like I wouldn't want to sit down and read this thing cover to cover in a few weeks. Like, I don't know if you could, but it's like, I found like I read like one a day and just kind of spread it out. But yeah, I'm almost through that. And then, this class I'm taking, there's a few books, but, one is Radicalism of the American Revolution by Gordon Wood, which has been pretty interesting so far. Kind of like, I don't know, like I'm only like 5 chapters in, but like the general idea is like you think they're radicals, but it's not necessarily for the same reasons that you thought. They were much more British than a lot of people think. So, and the actual like act of rebelling from Britain was almost like a pretty English thing to do. So that wasn't necessarily radical in itself, but it was really like, you know, you've heard the quote, like the revolution happened in the minds of the people. It's kind of along those lines where it wasn't necessarily the actual act of like the Revolutionary War. It was like the larger like sea change shift that happened in the people over the like whatever years of interim years. So that's interesting. And then the textbook is actually really good that goes with this class, which is called Major Problems in the Era of the American Revolution. It has a lot of like it's like a collection of primary sources. So you get to read like the perspective of all the different people at the time, from the era, like how that, and even it might just be like someone's diary, like their day to day, like the Unicorn Project, but for colonists. So yeah. And I'm also reading a biography of Hitler because 2020, it just seems like a good, like demagoguery is a good thing to study right now. So that's like my weekend book. And I guess, yeah, I'm surprised I'm not more depressed, but it's, if you haven't ever studied like Hitler and the era, like it is really interesting of how like societies shift to embracing something that, that terrible and radical and all the political and, and cultural trends that kind of go along with it that aren't really specific to the era. It's not, like there are definitely things that were specific to the era, but then there's also things that you can pull out and be like, oh, like, okay, we have that going on today for sure. If you put it all together, you'd probably end up with some kind of similar result. Luckily, there are definitely things that are not happening, other trends that are not happening currently, which gives me some hope. But it's, it gives you things to watch out for.
So do you feel like this has been a good use of your time, like taking this class?
In times where you're not sure what the heck is going on, like nothing helps better than more perspective. So it definitely beats reading the news.
There's a quote, I don't know who said this, but it's like, and I'm sure I'm butchering it because I don't remember it exactly, but it's basically like history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it rhymes.
Yeah. And, I love that quote.
Yes. I love studying like these people and their lives. And I was reading the George Washington book by Ron Chernow recently. Mm-hmm. And covering all that same time period, and seeing as it progresses, like these Federalist Papers, they dripped out, right? And there were responses to criticisms about, we don't want a strong federal government. We're afraid of having, a strong centralized government. We just got away from that,
Yeah.
And then, even Madison turned away from his support of the strong federal government over time and came more in line with Jefferson's views. But
right. And that was like the falling out with Hamilton, I think, right?
Yeah. And as you read their experiences and their opinions as time went by, you get to see like, oh yes, that does echo some of the things that we're seeing today in our environment, and you can definitely get some perspective from them.
Yeah, that's I think that's one of the major shifts that has been like, that has stuck out to me, is like the idealized view that you get kind of if you just like studied, if you got American history in college or I mean in high school, or like, took a college class or something. Like you kind of get this image that like it was like an ideal time or something. And like things today are just completely, things have shifted to be terrible today in politics. And they were dealing with just as, major issues back then, if not worse. Like, they had to deal with monarchy on top of it. So it's like, yeah, it's very similar dynamics. And like you said, it's not, it doesn't repeat, but it's definitely similar themes and like humans put in similar situations tend to behave in similar ways. And, you have similar outcomes in some cases. So I don't know. Politics has not changed all that much.
You can see like pretty clear consequences too from those arguments, because I mean, there are a couple of issues in America right now where a strong federal response would be quite helpful.
Right.
And we just haven't quite seen that, and we are suffering because of it. And that's not necessarily an argument one way or the other, but it's definitely a consequence. And similarly, a while ago, I read like a history of banking or finance or something like that, or central banks. And it was talking about how like America around the turn of the century, I think that's the time we're talking about, the previous century, not the odds, the economy was constantly in this boom bust cycle. It was very unstable. Mm-hmm. And European economies had this basically worked out. They didn't have these boom bust cycles. And the reason is that they figured out, hey, we can make a central bank and set monetary policy, and that will prevent these things. And so, I think, if I'm remembering this correctly, I think like one of the things that spurred the creation of the Fed, which isn't really a central bank in, the way that other countries have, like it's this weird, like
public-private system.
Yeah. It's like a private sector made up of 20 different regional banks. And like that came about because essentially like there was a sort of man-made famine in America. And essentially the reason for that was that, food production, it was all domestic back then pretty much. And when it was time to harvest the crops, what the farmers would do is they would go to the bank and they would take out a loan, and they would use the loan to pay their workers to, pick the crops. And then they would go and sell the crops and then pay back the loan. But the thing is, they were on the gold standard, so the banks had to have gold in their vaults to equal the, amounts of loan that were given out or something like that. And something happened and they didn't distribute gold. Like the banks didn't have enough gold, so they couldn't give out the loans. So the crops rotted in the fields and people couldn't eat. Mm-hmm. And then it took that sort of magnitude of event for Americans to get over their reluctance to trust national systems. And even then they were like, well, okay, but we've got to have, we can't just have a national bank. It's got to be this weird Rube Goldberg machine to convince ourselves it's not really a national bank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The whole like federal, non-federal debate has been like, happening since our founding for sure. And maybe will never end. I don't think it will ever end.
Well, we have fresh fodder for that debate now, like the whole managing elections, managing emergency response. A number, like Star said, a number of things recently could be better handled by having a more centralized, stronger federal government, even that we have today.
Yeah. One of the things that does seem to be different today, and it might not be, it might just be that there's so much more noise, and we like literally have like every piece of information that anyone, like anything anyone is saying at this moment is being like, dumped online and shoveled into our brains or whatever. But I do appreciate the, some of the like actual policy debates that you read from that era. Like, and even like, well, if you look like, the early presidents were the same people who wrote wrote a lot of the Constitution. They were lawyers, a lot of them, and other similar professions. So their ability to actually like talk and like, work through issues logically and speak about the actual policy instead of being politicians. And like, there was definitely like politicking, but like political campaigning was not really like, it's not like it was like it is today. And I'd just be like shocked today, for instance, if we had like president of the United States who like actually like wrote a well-reasoned piece about, like constitutional law, for example, which did happen back then because they were capable of it. And it was, I guess it was a lot smaller society too. So there were fewer people working on that stuff. But I do appreciate that from the time. And again, it might just be that, those are the things that survived. And so I'm assuming like, not everyone was reading these things necessarily, but it would be nice if people actually like talked about the issues and like kept the politics a little bit more, to the side. I mean, I think people still like, they still can. Like, I think Barack Obama and I think Bill Clinton taught constitutional law, so I'm sure they could like talk about it, but but they
just,
like they didn't
the campaigning.
Like,
that's just not the but they wouldn't have gotten elected then, because that's not how the system works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's just like
we kind of like put the founding, like we put the people who made the Constitution like up on this pedestal without necessarily realizing that it's like, okay, well, they kind of like invented the system that we're living in now. So, not saying like I would have done any better, but like that, they created the circumstances in which this thing that we have now evolved. So they're not like completely, they're not completely blameless for the current situation.
Yeah, I'm absolutely not like, I'm not trying to talk them up at all. I'm just saying like, if more people wrote to even today about major issue, like fine, like if you give your like whatever like stump speech or something, and you don't have to like go through like the finer points of like public policy or something, or like even major, I would hope you would cover major issues, but that doesn't seem to be the case. But just like maybe you could like write a Medium article or something.
This is one of the things that really impressed me about Elizabeth Warren. One of the things I really liked about her is that she took the time and thought out those kinds of things, and not that every politician has to be like Elizabeth Warren and has to have this great resource of, thought, but more of that would, I think, definitely be useful, or at least more valuing of that would definitely be useful. Like George Washington wasn't a lawyer, right? Wasn't a great thinker necessarily, as far as like Hamilton was, or Madison was, or Jefferson, right? But he appreciated all of those thoughts, all of those writings that came from those people. And that's, he had Hamilton and Jefferson both in his cabinet, who went into his throats because they were ideologically on opposite sides of issues, right? But he valued the exchange of ideas and the effort and the thought that went into those works that both Jefferson and Hamilton did. And I think if we had more people like that, that would definitely help us out.
Yeah. And that's a good point. Like I think like I said, they didn't have like real political parties back then. Like, I mean, they had like the Federalists and like like the Jeffersonian Republicans. And it was, starting to evolve, but it wasn't like the camps that we have today. And like you said, like they both had to like work together and argue it out, like in the president's office, basically. Like the other thing that was interesting about like parties is that when they talked a lot about faction back then. And like, if you read some of the writings and you read like their what they say about factions, like you're thinking, oh yeah, like that's like political parties today. Like these are different, like, groups of people that kind of like group together and have a similar platform and stuff. But in a lot of cases, like the faction that they were worried about was like actually between the individual colonies themselves, because like the colonies all like viewed themselves as almost like individual countries. And in some cases, like if you lived in one of the colonies, you would know more about England than you would know about like some of your neighbors. And so like they're literally thinking like, well, like these like foreigners, whatever, down south, like these are the factions that we have to worry about. It's like, so that like changed my thinking a little bit. Like when you think about like parties, like just at the time, it was such a different period. Like everything almost meant something different than what we would take it to mean today. Like, party, liberty, like all these words had completely different meanings to them than they do even to us. So what? Yeah. Person. Right. And yeah, obviously, but I like that. I like when you go deep, like studying it, like it helps to understand how things evolved to where they are today. And hopefully looking back helps to make things better in the future.
One can hope. I guess that was our summer reading episode.
Yeah.
This is our Common Sense with Honey Badger episode. Next time I'll have to get back to like actual technology and business.
All right. Well, this has been FounderQuest. And if you want to, I don't know if I should ask people to rate us after this one, because it's kind of off topic. So like if you don't like the off topic thing, like don't rate us. But if you do, go ahead and rate us at, Apple Podcasts. If you want to write for us, we still hire people to do blog posts and stuff. Go to honeybadger.io/blog and look for the Write For Us link, read the whole thing and get in touch with me. And yeah, it was great talking with y'all. And I hope that, you have a good apocalypse this week.
FounderQuest is a weekly podcast by the founders of Honey Badger. Zero instrumentation, 360-degree coverage of errors, outages, and service degradations for your web apps. If you have a web app, you need it. Available at honeybadger.io. Want more from the founders? Go to FounderQuestPodcast.com. That's one word, where you can access our huge back catalog of episodes. FounderQuest is available on iTunes, Spotify, and other purveyors of fine podcasts. We'll see you next week.